enthusiastic, exerting, protective father, to later on, when Kamala has snuck out, she's trying to help people, the mom is criticizing her, and the father is actually the one who's the most caring and understanding and listening to her and trying to see what's going on. Is further shown in the imam in the mosque. The person she fears the most, the person that's even used as a threat, you will have to go talk to him by the parents. And she's absolutely fearful of this, is he actually ends up being the one who is a guide for her. So breaks down this idea of what the imam in the mosque is, once again, that it isn't this over-controlling person, but this rather compassionate, understanding person. And he says, so instead I will tell you to do what you are doing with as much honor and skill as you can. Further, I'm going to skip through this just so I can have enough time, but as I said, the imam ends up being the most guiding and positive male figure in there. So this one, I think, is another great scene. Zoe is drowning because she's gotten drunk. Now, Kamala is torn on what to do, and this is a great scene. Hear the quote. There's this ayah from the Quran that my dad always quotes when he sees something bad on TV, a fire or a flood or a bombing. Whoever kills one person, it is as if he has killed all of mankind. And whoever saves one person, it is as if he has saved all of mankind. So all of a sudden, her motivation, her justification for saving someone, for jumping into action, becomes the Quran. So we break down this stereotype of the Quran of being this evil, scary book that promotes terrorism, getting away from this idea that Islam is equated to terrorism, when all studies have shown that's actually 0.0001% of Islamists are terrorists, or the Islamists are 0.0001% of Muslims, just like Christian extremists, 0.0001%. But we're using the Quran now in a comic to show the positiveness of it and to show that this is what she uses to go into action. So this is a summary of this. Miss Marvel provides material for resisting everyday forms of Islamophobia. By playing a critical role in the simultaneous effort of reproduction of and resistance to dominant constructions of Muslims, Islam, and immigrants in the United States. So we first reproduce these ideas, and then we break them down and show how these are wrong. All right, I'm going to talk about two more, and then I'm going to ask you a question and give you a chance if you have any questions for me. So back to representation. There's a brilliant comic called Somewhere Nowhere that I found a few months ago. As Amelia mentioned earlier, I do a lot of work with homeless youth. I'm on the board of a nonprofit in Portland, Oregon. And what a bunch of people did in England is they went around and found the stories of people who are homeless. And the idea behind this was to deconstruct the idea of what homelessness is. A lot of people you hear will say, oh, people are homeless because they're lazy. They just don't want to work. And I hope you, through reading this, or I hope being smart students, you'll know that that's a load of crap. Who wants to be homeless? I had someone once tell me, oh, they just want to be out there. Reagan is famous for having said this. They want to be there on the streets. I hope all of you have a nice, warm place to go to tonight. Well, not warm. I hope it's cool. The air conditioning's on here. I forget I'm in Texas. I live in Germany. It's about 35 there right now. Maybe you have a nice, cool place to go to and food tonight. A luxury we sometimes take for granted. Well, this comic talks about what led them to homelessness. Lots of times it was simply losing their job, not having what we talk about social capital, having people that you can lean on to help you. So it's giving voice to homelessness, showing a different side of it, talking about it. And this will bring me to my last slide where I want to mention the organization I work for and a project I'm working on now. So New Avenues for Youth is in Portland, Oregon, just celebrated 20th year. Helps homeless and at-risk youth get a path out of homelessness, out of street life. And the idea was, instead of just having, which is needed as well, but a bed or here's a meal, giving counseling for kids, giving job training, having transitional housing, education programs. So one of them is right here. This is Inc. I work with them every year for a couple events. It's a screen printing business, completely run by youth that have gone through the job training program. And this is them doing the design work for the t-shirts. And these 3 youth actually have started now their own design company called Different Pigeon. So, the attachment to comics. Well, one, that you have this way out, a path out of life, out of this difficult street life via art. Doing screen printing, having design companies. But the next project that I'm working on now, and this is where comics comes in, comics as a therapeutic tool once again. I've started, they recently had, does anyone know Dark Horse Comics? 1, 2 people, okay. Blankets, if you read Blankets, it's probably one of the most famous by them. It happens to be in Portland, Oregon. So I recently set up a visit for them to go visit Dark Horse Comics. And they absolutely loved it. So 20 youth got to go there, visit Dark Horse Comics. Now my idea is kind of taking the idea, I have to give credit where credit's due, telling the stories of homeless people. But what they did is they went and interviewed people and then drew their stories. The idea that we're working on now is we're going to have 8 to 10 youth are going to tell their own stories. And they're going to either be the writers and the illustrators, or a combination of both, work with some of the illustrators as well, to create a comic that, one, tells their stories, why they're homeless, sheds new light on homelessness, not just reading an article about homelessness and how it's a problem, and is also a therapeutic tool. Getting this story out is a way for them to heal from what has happened, what led them to homelessness. And I'll just give you maybe 2 statistics to tell you why and what group we're serving, and kind of goes into everything I've been talking about as studies. How do people become homeless? Well, losing jobs is one thing, but a disproportionate amount of people are queer youth. Roughly, depending on who you talk to, 8 to 10% of the population identifies as queer. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, etc. So I'll put the Q is at the end for queer, an umbrella term for everything, but intersexual, asexual, two-spirit, 8 to 10%. So if this was a normative, spread out, mathematically normal, 8 to 10% should be homeless. Anyone have an idea how many, what percentage the queer youth make up of homeless youth?
40, 50.
About, our statistics in Portland are about 46, 48%. 50% in San Antonio. So disproportionate amount of youth. So this project is bringing comics into that, helping them, as I said, as a therapeutic tool, but also rewriting, letting them see themselves in comics. So last one, very last slide. I'll ask you a question first. My title was The New Superheroes. So I have my list, but who do you think, who are the new superheroes then? And this is sort of open to your interpretation. I have my idea, but anyone have an idea? Who are the new superheroes of comics? No one? I'll give you the answer if you're too shy or scared or... Well, I'll say it's a handful of people. One, I'll say it's the representation of queer characters in comics, the representation of minority characters in comics, the illustrators, the writers for doing these. I think it's amazing that these are being used. The publishers, I'll give them credit, but they're also publishers. They are business people. Educators. Educators, I think, is another huge one. This is being accepted as an educational tool. And my last one is, I figured no one would say this, was pick the obvious one. You all, reading these comics. Handful of you read your hand that you had read Miss Marvel. I think you all, too. Without you, without the market, these things aren't going to be done. You'll get some on the internet and such, but you as well. All right, that's it for me. Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions? No? Questions? Yeah, I'll be around here hanging out for a little bit. So if you have questions, you can come up and ask me as well. No? All right. Enjoy your day.